Welcome, Behringer and Cannon School Chess Club students. This is your coach, National Master Peter Giannatos, bringing you a lecture on the ladder checkmate. The ladder checkmate, also known as the double rook checkmate, is a checkmate that involves using two rooks to corner and mate the enemy king. In this simple example, I have given white two rooks and a king versus black's lone king. The first step in many checkmates, and the ladder checkmate alike, is to stop the king from running forward and contain him. In other words, we want to keep this king on the side of the board. Can you spot the two moves that keep the king on the side of the board? Take a second to figure them out. Hopefully, you spotted the moves rook h7, which stops the king from moving forward, and the move rook a7, which also stops the king from moving forward. Either of these moves would do the trick, but I'm going to use the move rook a7. Now, because black cannot move forward, he is limited to what he can do. Black has two options. Black could move his king to e8 or to f8. Let's take a look at the move king d8. Now, notice the rook on a7 is stopping the king from moving forward. Can you spot a move that would not only attack the king, but put the king in checkmate? I'll give you a hint. There's an old saying that goes, move the piece that's doing the least. Can you spot the piece that's moving the least and put him into action? Take a second to figure it out. Hopefully the move you chose was rook h8, leading to checkmate. The rook on a7 was serving the purpose of cutting off the king. The rook on h1 was doing nothing, so we decided to use him to attack the king on the back rank, leading to checkmate. Notice that the king has no retreating squares and no safe places to move, leading to checkmate. Now that was a very simple example where the king started off on the side of the board. Do you think you have the skills to checkmate the king if he started in the center? Let's see. Here is an example where black's king is in the center of the board, but we still have two rooks and the same rules apply. The first step in the ladder checkmate and other checkmates is usually to contain the king, stopping him from moving closer to the center. Can you spot one of two moves that stop the king from coming closer to the center? Take a second to figure it out. Hopefully, you chose either the move rook h4, which cuts off the king, stopping him from coming forward, or the move rook a4, which does the same job. Now, a stubborn defender here as black would not willingly back his king up, but keep his king close to the center of the board and make you push him back. So let's say black says, I'll keep my king in the middle, push me back if you can. Well, let's use that old saying, move the piece that's doing the least. Notice our rook on a4 is stopping the king from moving forward. So we need to use the rook on h1 to attack the king. I want to see if you can find the move. Take a second to figure it out. Hopefully the move you chose was rook h5, attacking the black king, putting him in check, forcing him back. Notice our rook on a4 is stopping the king from coming forward as the rook is attacking all of the squares on the fourth rank. Now, black has several moves in which he can back away to the sixth rank, but let's suppose he goes to c6. Now, the rook on h5 is cutting off the king from moving forward, while the rook on a4 is not serving a purpose anymore. Can you find a good move with the rook on a4 that would attack the king and force him back closer to the side of the board? Take a second and figure it out. Hopefully the move you chose was rook a6, placing the black king in check. Notice that the black king cannot move up to the 5th rank thanks to the rook on h5. Black has several moves here, all retreating moves, but one very sneaky one, which I am going to play. King b7. Now, king b7 is a little sneaky. Can you see what it's doing? Hopefully you see that if we play rook h7 and follow the ladder checkmate, black would simply gobble our rook on a6 as it wasn't protected. So back to the original position. Black's king is attacking our rook on a6. What do? Well, the common way we deal with this problem is moving the rook as far away from the king as possible. So you might say, well, okay, I'll keep the king cut off and play rook a to h6. The problem with the move rook a to h6 is that it gets in the way of the other rook. Think about it this way. If you were climbing a ladder, would you put both hands on top of each other to climb it? Didn't think so. You would put the hands next to each other, then climb the ladder. So, not rook a to h6, but rather rook g6, keeping the rooks away from each other so that they're not blocking each other, allowing them to climb the ladder and checkmate the black king. Black will attempt to run toward the rooks, but as we know, while the king is an important piece, he is definitely a weak piece, and it will take him a long time to get to the other side of the board. Let us see. King to c7. Now, notice that the rook on g6 is stopping the king from moving forward. Can you spot the best move for white, forcing the king to the back rank? Take a second to figure it out. Hopefully the move you chose was rook to h7. Rook h7 is a great move. It attacks the king along the 7th rank. And notice our rook on g6 stops the king from moving forward. Black's fate is near as he must move to the side of the board. Let's suppose he plays king to d8. Can you find the move leading to checkmate? Hopefully you can. Take a second to figure it out. I hope the move you chose was rook to g8 checkmate. Notice that the rook on h7 stops the king from moving forward, while the rook on g8 smacks the king along the back rank. The king has no safe place to move to, and he is under attack. This leads to checkmate. Well, students, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you fully understand how to do the ladder checkmate. Looking forward to seeing you at Chess Club in the next week. See you soon. Best, Peter G.